Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio right here in coastal Mississippi. And I want to welcome our listeners from the Jackson and Delta markets as we continue to roll the show out to other markets and on other days. I appreciate you being here listening. I have a very special show today. We'll come to that here in just a second. But, you know, I know that there are a lot of people who drive in to the Capitol this time of year. There are a lot of constituents that drive in that want to be part of the democratic process in Mississippi. And you may be driving and you're not sure when you start to get a faint signal on SuperTalk, you're not sure exactly which one to tune into next. So if you haven't figured that out, one thing I would really recommend that you do is go to supertalk.fm, supertalk.fm, and just pull up the show that you're listening to or the channel that you're listening to, and you'll be able to continue to listen as, you know, you may be driving to Paris, France, and you can still listen. So Paul Gallo and I talked about this the other day, a brilliant digital and radio strategy by the leadership at SuperTalk Mississippi Media. But to remember the website, supertalk.fm, is so easy to remember. And you can get your particular station. You can get the main station in Jackson. You can listen to specific shows. You can interact however you want to interact. But anyway, that's just a little tip for you, because again, a lot of people are going to be in their cars this time of year as they drive it to Jackson to be involved in the legislative process. You know, this show is a show that celebrates the people, the men and women who are working so hard across the state of Mississippi to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. And so we have a wide range of people that we talk to who are working in the trenches. They're leading, they're volunteering. They may be entrepreneurs that are doing really cool things. You know, it could be Mississippians that are doing cool things. You know, we've had celebrities, we've had people that you don't know who they are, but once you learn who they are, you realize that they are involved in something really, really special. And so, you know, our goal here is to sort of find those people to have fun conversations. Every now and then, we're going to have what I refer to as a Ricky Matthews show diversion, and it's to celebrate maybe a local person that's doing something well outside the state of Mississippi. That's the case today, and just have an interesting conversation. But I want to share with you real quick before we get to the show a quote that I ran across that sort of applies to the start of the new year, because a lot of people are focused on, you know, what's the future going to be as I want to, you know, take on my New Year's resolutions, et cetera. But I have a history book that I get every morning. And in the history book that I got a couple of days ago, it was celebrating President Ronald Reagan actually being sworn in as the governor of the state of California back in 1967. And here's something that he said along the way. Man, he said so many cool things along the way, but this is one that I think is really important. He said, "The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave." You know, whether you're talking about changes you want to make in yourself, you say you want to improve your mental health, and you're focused on that. You're going to focus on the people that surround you, take out the negative people, bring in more positive people. Maybe you're focused on losing some weight and getting healthier physically. You know, maybe you're working in the community and you want to do some bold things in the community. I think it's true that the future doesn't belong to faint-hearted, that it belongs to those that are brave. Sometimes you have to actually take risks in the community. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're focused on doing something. I know a lot of entrepreneurial efforts that I've been involved in, and people that have been on the show have been involved in. Boy, it wasn't for the faint-hearted. You had to be brave to sort of get out there and try new things. I think that actually applies very, very well to our next guest. So let me shift gears now and share with you sort of the way I want to open the show today. If you analyze New Orleans Saints coverage, and there's a lot of it out there, because in the dawn of the digital world, you've got Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and you've got, people have their own websites. Of course, you have radio and TV and newspapers, and most of them have extensions of that and some kind of digital format. But if you look at the New Orleans Saints content, you see there's a lot of work happening in that area. Now, if you pay attention to the New Orleans Saints, you probably know some of these that I'm going to mention now. But maybe if you don't pay attention to it, pay attention to what I'm about to say, because it's going to give you a real sense of how do you, in the sea of competitors, how do you differentiate yourself? But you have some folks like this, for example, AFR, which is an extension of ESPN radio. You have Bobby Hebert, the former quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, that's with WWL Radio. He has a podcast or an extension to YouTube from what they're doing. You have Locked On Sports or Locked On Saints, which is actually a national footprint. They have a digital strategy, and they have a New Orleans part of that. But they're part of something, sort of this national strategy. You have this company called New Orleans Football, which is led by a guy by the name of Nick Underhill, and they're highly financed, and they're a very local effort. But it's one that they've done a really good job in their digital footprint. You've got the powerhouses like the Saints team at my farmer company, the Times-Picayune.NOLA.com. And, they put a lot of their energy in the Times-Picayune.NOLA.com side of that. But they have an extension to that on YouTube called Insider, the Insider Saints program. But if you look at that mix of competitors, right there in the middle of the pack is one guy, literally one man. He has no team around him. It's one man, and his name is James Skrmetta. Now, yeah, that's actually right. The Skrmetta family from coastal Mississippi. James now lives in New Orleans, and today we're going to tell James' story. How did one guy battle the Saints content giants and gain relevance in a sea of content in New Orleans around the Saints? He's kind of found his niche. His analysis of the Saints is what I find to be really smart, really funny at times, and piercingly accurate. He calls a spade, and he doesn't back away from that. And the viewers have started to really come back for more, and he's growing pretty dramatically. I think over 1 million views in 2023. So we're going to spend the whole time with James today. And without any further ado, let me welcome my friend James Skrmetta to the Ricky Matthews Show. How you doing, James?
Thank you. Appreciate it. What an intro. I don't know if Governor Schwarzenegger was talking about posting football videos on YouTube when he was talking about being brave, but I will take it. I will take it.
Hey, listen, I have a great way to start the show, so I'm going to kind of give you a question that the listeners may not understand it, but you'll explain it. But what I want to ask you is this: how did the ice on your eyes go last night as you looked into your storm?
Man, so funny question. That was a quote from DeMario Davis after the Buccaneers game, and we broke down his interview, and I never heard that quote. So I thought it was like a Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump, like screaming at the storm. It's actually from the Bible with the disciples and Jesus. So I had a ton of my audience telling me, basically giving me a theology class. And I'll tell you this: I wish they would have talked to the storm in week 3 or week 2 or week 4. I don't know why it took 17 weeks to call the storm and to fix the season. It might be a little too late, but
I love the way you said that your money was on 9.5 wins. They picked one game too late to figure it out.
Brutal. I mean, you talk about lost sleep. I had the biggest bet I've ever made in my entire life was on the Saints to win more than 9.5 regular season games. And now it's just the world's most expensive coaster on my coffee table in my living room. But yeah, then now, and you know what's going to happen. Like now that they can't win 10 games, they're going to win against the Falcons. They're going to probably win the division. They'll go to the playoffs, and they may go on a run and win the Super Bowl with 9 wins, and I'm going to be sitting here holding the bag. So tough year for me.
Hey, listen, James, I hope that's the case. I was looking at some of the percentages on the chances of them even getting into the playoffs now, since they need so much help. It's in the teens. So
yeah.
It's more than likely they won't. But wouldn't it be great if they did? I mean, even you would love that, wouldn't you?
It's crazy because if you ask Saints fans, they're kind of apathetic. They really don't know what they want right now. Even after the Buccaneers game, I had a lot of people telling me, we reacted. We did our whole video immediately after the game, and people are chiming in real time. And they were all kind of saying the same thing. They're like, I don't know whether to cheer or not, because on one hand, if we do go on a run, that's just a bigger chance that this coaching staff and the players come back. Do people want that, right? But at the same time, you don't want to cheer against your team. So they're kind of caught in this catch-22 of they're not totally sure what they want. And that's even kind of the media. I was listening to Nick Underhill in New Orleans Football last night, and he was saying the same thing. He was saying, do we want to go to the playoffs? Sure. But do we deserve to be there? Would that be good for the franchise? Is that long-term good? I don't know. That's a tough question for fans right now.
It is a tough question. It is. Listen, we'll get into some of that content before we get done with our conversation today. But what I'm going to do is turn the page back a little bit and talk about growing up in Biloxi. Sure. I know the Skrmetta family really well. Well, I literally watched you grow up. I know your parents really well. Your grandfather and my family, my wife's family, all were in the same neighborhood, over on the Point. And wonderful, Slavonian or Croatian influence to both of our families. We're going to get into all that here in just a second. And what made you pick journalism, and how did you get into this sort of becoming a YouTube influencer the way that you are? And we're going to tell all that story when we continue our conversation with James Skrmetta after this break. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. And again, welcome our listeners from the Delta, Jackson, and Mississippi Gulf Coast markets as we come to you from the Citizens Bank studio. Say that quote one more time. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. It applies to so many parts of our lives. It certainly points to someone who's trying to become relevant in sort of the digital space these days, because there's so many podcasts out there and they have so many different partners, and it's hard. It's not easy to do that. And James Skrmetta, our guest today from Coastal Mississippi, incidentally, who now lives in New Orleans. He's got a pretty cool gig. This is not his full-time gig. This is something he does on the side. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Hey, before we get back to the conversation, James, I just want to allude to something we were chatting about before the show started. Cal Curley, who is the producer of this show, he does IT and operations. He produces this show. I can set my watch by Cal Curley. We've done over 900 shows together. What an amazing dude he is. But he does the music in the Superdome during Saints games. You cover the Saints from about every perspective. So when I mentioned music, you immediately understood what Cal's contributions were, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Look, I've been going to every home game for probably a decade now, and the music, even when the Saints are good, a lot of people talk about the music over what's on the field. I'll tell you this, before I started going to Saints games, I never listened to Pantera. And now that I've been going to Saints games, my Pantera intake has gone very high. So, yeah, Kyle has a serious influence on my my Spotify playlist every year.
Pantera man, Kyle.
It's been a long road to be able to play Pantera at the Superdome. Tell you that. For sure.
Well, I look forward to it every week. That's why I go. I basically have season tickets to Pantera, not the Saints. So,
right?
Appreciate it.
That's cool. That's really cool. I often say, James, that when the music is great, the Saints win.
Yeah, agree.
When the Saints lose, they had a bad game plan.
So, yeah, bad playlist.
Right. Well, it's not Kyle's fault when they lose.
Not my fault.
So anyway, James, coming back to you, man, we'll get into sort of where you are today with your show and what you're doing with. It's very unique. I love the way you're doing it. In fact, actually, there's some parts of it that I want to steal. I like the way that you will play others' reactions to the Saints and then comment about it. I love the way you do that. I actually want to start doing it when there's important public meetings. Yeah. I want to inset me into an important public meeting and stop it and say, here's what you just heard. Let me tell you why this is important. I want to do it as it relates to the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Park Commission. So we'll talk about that here in just a second, because I love the way you do that, and it's extraordinarily effective. But again, let's take a step back. Okay. You grew up in a really important Biloxi family that has roots back to Croatia. What was that like to grow up in Biloxi?
I love Biloxi. I love Mississippi. Even though I live in New Orleans, my heart home is Mississippi. I love going back to Biloxi as much as I can. And I think it's a big part of why I kind of started that creative route. A lot of people say, you can't be a funny stand-up comedian if you're from New York or California or Los Angeles. You have to be from the middle of America. You have to be from these cities, these rural cities, like a lot of the cities in Mississippi. So, it makes you a storyteller. It makes you be imaginative. John Grisham, obviously, people like that who are shining lights of that. And I think Biloxi is a big reason I am who I am.
Well, it's interesting you pointed that out. I've told people a lot, like if someone's confused about what they want to be when they grow up, I'll tell them, look, you got to have some good foundation. You got to have a good math foundation. If you're going to college, you need to know a little bit about business. You need to kind of broaden your knowledge just about the world. But the ability to communicate is one of the most important things you can get. So when you'd made the decision to go to the University of Southern Mississippi and get a degree in journalism, that was important to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to do, and it was a weird time period because it was so different, just as far as like media and journalism in 2007 versus how it would be in 2012. When I graduated, because when I went to college, social media wasn't a big deal, YouTube wasn't a big deal, podcasts weren't a big deal, and you think about these major players now, Joe Rogan's podcast, Barstool Sports. People like that who are bigger, arguably, than ESPN or some of the news channels. They didn't even exist. So going to journalism school or wanting to be a journalist was a very different road in 2007. So my destination was the same, but how I got there was way different than how I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's amazing how if you find your, as I referred to you off the air, you find your shtick, that you can differentiate yourselves from others, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. But what's interesting, and I learned this doing this show, is that to get pretty good at this, you got to do it a lot, man. You just got to do it a lot. And the same thing's true about communicating. When you started your journalism career, and it's interesting, you started at the Sun Herald. Mm-hmm. I used to be president publisher of the Sun Herald. You started after I was no longer actually with the Sun Herald, but I still followed your career closely, because the fact is, even after I left the Sun Herald, I had tremendous respect for so many of the people who worked there and followed them carefully. And I knew that, they had some tough roads ahead, because newspapers in general are really going to struggle, because the business model that paid for journalism had literally been obliterated. But that time you spent at the Sun Herald was actually really important to you in terms of forming your ability to, choose words carefully and form sentences carefully and appropriately. You worked for some really good editors. That was important to you, wasn't it?
That's a good example of how the media landscape changed. So there was only really three options back then if you wanted to do media. You had to go to terrestrial radio, which is your classic, 106.4 The Wolf in some random city. You have TV, like a local news station, or you have newspaper back then, at least. And that's the only way to get, like you said, to get reps, to get those hours in of doing something. And the Sun Herald offered me a job. I was working at Mississippi Coast Supply in the warehouse, moving shower units and toilets. So shout out Mississippi Coast Supply. And then I went to the Sun Herald, and I really never wanted to be a newspaper reporter. I never wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be talking about sports all day. That's all I wanted to do. So the newspaper, it gave me a good idea of what I didn't want to do in media, and kind of sharpened my focus on what I did want to do in media. So, it was tough. I was a crime reporter there. Like I said, I had no background doing that. That's a far cry from talking sports. So it taught me a lot, and it definitely moved me on the path in journalism, for sure.
It did. And what was interesting during that time, you started to toy with podcasting. And that's when I was following you closely during those days. And I knew if you stuck with it, there's something there in all this. I mean, part of getting good at it is you got to have staying power. You have to be willing to hang in there with it. And I could see early on you had a passion for it, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like when I was at the Sun Herald, that's when I first saw and learned about the new age of digital media, like YouTube and podcasts, and specifically Norm Macdonald, who recently passed, but he had a podcast, like a live video podcast on YouTube. And Dennis Miller had a podcast, and I was watching and listening to both of those, and they both solo produced it. It wasn't with a company, it wasn't with whoever, it was in their own personal studios. And at that time, I was like, whoa, this is, I don't need a terrestrial radio station to give me a horrible time slot at a local station in who knows where. I can do it on my own. So I went and bought a camera, went and started everything, and I started to do that. When I was at the Sun Herald, I had a couple videos that went relatively viral, nothing crazy. And I had a conversation with the editor at the time. He kind of said, why don't you kind of do this for us? But instead of doing it on the topics you want, do it on local topics like city council meetings and whatever piers being built in Gulfport or whatever. And I said, it's not going to work. I'm not doing that. I cannot do that. I can't. That's not me. That's not what I want to do. So I made the decision there to go full bore into making it independently and shifting away from the Sun Herald. And I started on PR. So that's when my career shifted into two splits. One being the professional career, pay the bills. And the second one was this kind of passion. And, you talk about staying power. That's the biggest thing with people now that I talk to trying to get into the space. They want to make money. They want to have a huge audience. And I tell everyone, I say, you will not for 5-10 years. It's not going to happen. So unless you love it enough to do it for that length of time, it's not going to work. And that was exactly what happened to me. I did it for 10 years for virtually no one, with an audience of less than 10 people. And I did not make $1 for 10 straight years. So.
Yeah. And the development that happened during that time was pretty significant. And that's why this whole notion of faint-hearted, I can relate to that really well, because I worked my way up for 27 years, became publisher of the Sun Herald, and then in 2009 had this opportunity to lead the company. I thought I'd never leave because, I was so committed to the community. I was so committed to the industry, and, we're helping to rebuild coastal Mississippi. And then I had to make a decision. And it took me almost 5 months to decide to take the offer that I was given. When we come back on the other side, I'll tell you why that's relevant to what you did. And we'll share from our own personal experiences, how we reach these forks in the road and we have decisions to make. We'll continue our conversation with James Skrmetta after we come back from break. See you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. I have my friend James Skrmetta. James is competing with some big players in New Orleans around Saints content. We'll talk to you more about how to find him. And if you're a Saints fan, I really encourage you to listen. You'll enjoy the analysis. It's very smart. You'll laugh a lot. And you will be blown away with how piercingly honest he is about what he thinks needs to happen at the Saints. He's sort of found his shtick. It's going to be fun to watch James as he continues to evolve. But when we went to break, I was mentioning that, again, coming back to this whole notion of the future belongs to those who are faint-hearted, who doesn't belong to those who are faint-hearted. In other words, you've got to be willing to take risk in your life. And I was mentioning that I had an opportunity in 2009 to take a new job with Advanced Condé Nast, which I ultimately decided to do. Took a lot of time to think about it. But, you reach these forks in your life. Every step of the way, every couple 2 or 3 years in my career, I had a chance to take a new job or do something different. And I usually chose to do it. And I look back on it now, some of the smartest things I ever did. People often will say, nah, God, I don't want to do it. I can't take the risk. I just can't do it. I can't take the risk. Whatever it is, it might be, maybe I'm going to go walk more, or I'm going to work out weights. God, I can't do it. I just can't handle the pain. Or maybe it's read more, or maybe it's drink more water, or maybe it's your career, or maybe it's, life choices that you make. You got to be willing to, when you get to that fork in the road, you got to be willing to make the tough decisions and take some risk and see what happens. That's what you did. Watching as a sort of an observer during that time when you were at the Sun Herald and you started your own kind of podcast over here to the side, and then you made the decision to lead the Sun Herald. I was actually blown away that you did that, because I thought, God, if you stayed with the Sun Herald, you could continue to develop these skills. But you were bold enough to say, you know what? That's not the path I need to take. I'm going to go in a different direction. Is that something you lost sleep about, or did you do it confidently?
No, I think, I always say it's crazy until it's not. Like if you look at someone like Oprah, when she was a news station reporter, if she would have told somebody, I'm going to be a billionaire, I'm going to have the biggest show in the world, I'm going to have my own magazine, people would have said, that's crazy. That's insane. It's not going to work. But now it's like, of course it would have worked, right? So to me, it's way more reckless and it's way more scary to not try and to not take the chance and to wonder what happened. To stay in a safe space and always wonder, like, could I have done this? Could I have chased whatever? And so, no, I had, and maybe it's, false confidence, I guess. But I always believed that I was good at what I wanted to do, and I was good at what I did. And so I had this kind of belief that if I just pushed and I just kept trying and I just kept knocking on the doors, so eventually a door would open. Whether it took 10 years or 10 hours.
Well, hey, what was amazing? Hey, James, what was amazing is how young you were when you were faced with these decisions.
Yeah, I was 20. I was like 22 somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you left the Sun Herald, and what did you do after that?
I started doing PR, which had no training at all in the University of Southern Mississippi's Gulf Coast Research Lab, which is now the School of Ocean Science and Engineering. Took a chance on me. Pam Moeller hired me. She's still with USM, and she kind of took me under her wing and kind of taught me PR. PR really, I guess, is just reverse engineering reporting. So it was easy. The least favorite part of being a newspaper reporter for me was like asking people questions, getting in people's faces and getting the answers. But when you're doing PR, you have the answers. So it took the hard part out. So I started doing PR, and my whole goal was to find a stable job, easy, normal hours, consistent hours that allowed me to really focus on what I wanted to do after work or before work, which was at the time like podcasts and videos and blogs and my websites and stuff like that. So that's how it started.
So you started to really, it's interesting too, you started to reverse engineer what it takes to succeed in the digital realm, because as you pointed out, you got to know the data, you got to understand how organic works, the algorithms are constantly changing. And so you spend a lot of time just kind of understanding the foundation of what it means to be success beyond the part that you felt like would work. And that is the time you're going to put in to do the analysis, the time you're going to put into making sort of your name, your thoughts, your approach. You could be great at all those things, but if you didn't have the digital foundation in place, it's all for naught. It's like a tree falling in the forest that nobody hears. You knew that for 10 years.
Yeah, 100%.
But you built a foundation around that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like it is, when you don't have a set organization like a newspaper or a website or a news station or whatever, you have to create it. You have to force the algorithm. You have to force whatever it is at the time. You have to force it to get you in front of other people. I don't care if you're the smartest man in the world. I don't care if you're the greatest musician in the world. If you're playing to a room of zero, then no one's going to hear it or care. So you have to somehow get out there. Now, at the same time, I would say that the digital space, you have a much better chance of being seen. Just like we were talking about in 2007, you had to do the newspapers. You had to do the local terrestrial radio. Same if you're a musician, right? You had to play the horrible bars and the horrible concerts to 20 people to hope one person can get you to the next spot. Now, you have a much better chance of just putting your music on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube and sending it to the masses. So it's hard to get out there, but the opportunities are out there.
So what's your job today? What's your full-time job today?
Same thing, PR. Do PR in New Orleans for an energy services company. And it's funny because I think as I've gotten better with YouTube and podcasts and that world, it's made me better in the PR world because I do understand the organic growth and the algorithms and things like that. And anytime we have to do like video editing or video creation, I'm always like, I can help. And people are like, do you have experience with this? I was like, I've only put probably 500,000 hours into videoing myself.
So, hey, do your bosses appreciate the fact that you've built this capability outside of work that really makes you better at work?
No, I don't. I've kept them separate. I say no, but I don't think it's almost like a Clark Kent Superman situation. I try and keep both lives separate, so I don't even know if they know. Honestly.
I wonder if you have fans at work.
So ever since things blew up, we joke around like, will I get noticed in New Orleans at Saints games? So now that the audience is way bigger. When it was an audience of 40, it wouldn't have happened. But now that it's an audience of 1 million, then I do kind of keep that in the back of my head. when I'm out there. So maybe at work, I don't know. Maybe people in the break room. Who knows?
Yeah, you have to. It makes you have to be responsible. The truth is, if you're not representing your brand all of the time, so you're a public figure now. You can't afford to drop your guard. One mistake, James, this, could blow it. You know that.
Yeah. Well, as long as you're, that's another thing too. Like, as long as you're real in what you're doing and who you are and what if you believe in what you're saying, then like you said, piercingly honest, I think was your term. I am piercingly honest with what I think the Saints should do and what I think with the NFL and sports in general, but I really do believe it. So whether I'm saying it to a YouTube audience or someone in the street, I'm going to believe I'm going to say what I believe. And as long as I believe in it and I'm confident in it and I have the data and the stats to back it up,
Hey, so for people who have not been to his podcast, and I really encourage you to go look at James Skrmetta on YouTube, what you'll see is he's reacting to other media. So let's take New Orleans football, for example. Maybe Nick Underhill is reacting to the game, and then what James does is react to Nick Underhill reacting to the game. So they'll put New Orleans football video up there. James will do a little inset at the bottom left. He'll be in that, and he'll be reacting, stopping the video and reacting to it. I'm actually curious when you do these, you might be reacting to Bobby Hebert, or you might be reacting to whoever. You got several that you react to. Do they ever get mad at you for reacting to them, or do they appreciate that you do?
I know Nick. Well, I don't know Nick, but Nick has reached out and we've talked a little bit about some of these videos, and I know he appreciates. I think he's fine with it. The way I look at it is that, and I didn't create this format, but I do think I'm good at the format because it kind of simulates debate. If you think about how many times you've watched like ESPN and you've watched Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless and you've thought that's wrong, or you've thought, whoa, that's a wrong way of looking at it, or you had a thought that was better maybe. You can't call Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless and get put on the show and explain it, but this is a way to do that. This is a way to provide context and to, take thoughts and take things different ways. So I look at it like basically being on the show and creating, kind of a new product out of their video.
Yeah, it's a really cool approach, and it only works because I think the competitive advantage you bring is something I mentioned to you off the air, is that you're doing it off the cuff. You're not scripted at all, actually. Talk about that, and how are you good at that?
That's how I prefer to do it. So early YouTube was very edited. It was very like sound effects and video effects and graphics and whatever. I want it to be more like a show. I want it to be more like a radio show.
Why don't we do this? When we come back on the other side in the final segment, we'll talk specifically, how does he do it? And how can you get to it and see it yourself? And then, where are the Saints going from here? We'll see in the last segment what James has to say about that. But we'll continue our conversation with James Skrmetta on the other side. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend James Skrmetta with us today. He's a New Orleans-based content creator that had over 1 million views on his YouTube channel in 2023. And look, if you go into the big radio station of New Orleans is WWL, and then you've got NOLA.com, the number one of the strongest local websites in the entire United States. I used to be president of the company that had responsibility for that. The Times-Picayune, you've got WWL TV, you've got WDSU, and all. Man, you got a sea of competitors that have teams of people behind them, and they're paying tons of money for their talent and all this stuff. And in the midst of all of that, you have one man without a team. This one-man show in James Skrmetta, who's become relevant and is growing, and he's got a lot of people who pay attention to what he's doing. And it's just a great story. And he's from coastal Mississippi, from the Skrmetta family here in coastal Mississippi. So we're chatting about that. What we were saying before we went to the break is simply that your approach is to react to what others are saying, and it creates great ways for you to sort of show what you're good at. Have you always been good at sort of thinking on your feet and, sort of being off the cuff?
Yeah, I think I've always been kind of witty, and I think those conversations, people like conversations like that, unedited, kind of how you would talk to a friend, how you would talk to somebody at a bar, and that's basically how my channel is. It's the same conversation you're going to get if you're sitting at your local watering hole and you ask somebody, think the Saints are going to win this weekend, and you kind of have that back and forth. That's what I'm simulating on my channel with every video, with every topic we do. So
yeah, I love it.
Same kind of flow.
Well, you're pretty well read. There's a lot of different references you make. For example, I love the one that you use a lot, and I know it well because I read just about every book he wrote, was Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And this effusive positivity that comes out of Derek Carr and others, and that part just drives you crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Carr, a very polarizing figure right now, certainly in New Orleans, but he is like overtly positive. He is the most very Tony Robbins, Joel Osteen-esque. And that doesn't come off great when you're losing in prime time, 30-7 or whatever it may be, or if you throw for 170 yards, it's hard to listen to a walking fortune cookie when you just want to hear, you want to hear like what actually happened in the game. I don't want motivational advice. I want to know why we're losing. I want to know why we're under 500 again.
Does it strike you that in this press conferences, he really never says anything?
I think he's playing a character. I think he wants to be Drew Brees. He wants so hard to be Drew Brees, and he wants to be loved, and he wants to be this figure, this big figure in the city. But what he fails to realize, or what he can't do, I guess, is that the reason Drew Brees got there is because what he did on the field and what he gave to the city and what he gave to the team. Carr has to do the on the field stuff before he can give these positive press conferences.
Hey, you did a really good podcast in the short time we have left for people who are Saints fans. I'd like to end with you at least explaining your point of view about this, and that is that 8-8, we could be 9-8. We may or may not get in the playoffs. It looks like Dennis Allen's job is probably safe. But the hope is, and there's a lot of different macerations, that, from cleaning house to which they probably are not going to do. I know Mickey Loomis. I know Miss Benson. Obviously I spent some time in the city, had a chance to get to know them well. I know Dennis Lashow. They're not going to be quick to get rid of Dennis Allen. I just know that, and you know that too. So probably some changes in the offensive, maybe absolutely turnover on the offensive thinking.
I think so.
I can't help but remember that John Gruden actually had Carr playing his best, but someone like a John Gruden, I don't think John Gruden, but you know the point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's your latest thinking on all that?
I think you got two lines of thinking, right? You have a fan's line of thinking, which is blow it up. The fans always want new head coach, new quarterback, new owner, new GM, new whatever. But then you got to think that's so much turnover for one offseason. So of course Loomis. Do we need a new head coach? Yes. Do we need a new OC? Yes. Do we need a new quarterback? Yes. Do we need a new defensive coordinator? Yes. But we have to have a team next year. We can't fill 40 different jobs in one offseason. So what I think Loomis will do is I think he'll fire the offensive staff. I think he'll give Allen another year because Allen is a good defensive coach. We didn't fill the hole that was Sean Payton, Drew Brees. I mean, we lost our greatest coach in franchise history, one of the greatest offensive minds in the NFL. For the last 15 years. We lost our franchise quarterback, who, in my opinion, is a top 5 quarterback to ever live. We lost all of that, and we replaced it with a defensive coach, and we didn't replace the quarterback. So now I think Loomis will try and fix the offense, go get a true coordinator outside of the building, whether that's, Ben Johnson or Joe Brady from Buffalo or someone that we don't even know yet, an analyst somewhere or an offensive analyst. But he'll do that, give Allen a chance to write the defense. And then if that doesn't work, more than likely we'll cut Carr after next year, and then we'll probably make the head coaching change.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. James, I had the impression that I thought I would have, and that is that I've enjoyed visiting with you, not just because I admire your family and I've watched you carefully. I love what you're doing. I think there's some of your best work is ahead of you. You have such a wonderful shtick about you, and I think you understand how it works. I look forward to following that. I look forward to you joining me again. Well, we'll talk less about your story next time and just talk about the situation, whatever it might be, and tap into that fun part of you that I look forward to visiting with in the future. But until then, thank you for joining, my friend. Happy New Year to you.
Absolutely. Much appreciated. Happy New Year to you.
You bet. You bet. This has been James Skrmetta. And listen, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.